I'm Rhiannon from the Funeral Directory, and I'm here with Dagon from Inquisition. Are you ready to answer a few questions?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So how's the tour going so far?
Very well. It's going really good. It's our first headliner at this scale. We've always done somewhat one-off shows, fly-ins, or mini tours, like a West Coast thing, something small, Northeast, small tours like that, 3-4 shows. But the big circuits that we've done like this, we're always as direct support or in a support role. So this is truly our first headlining tour in the United States, and considering that, it's going extremely well. Shows look pretty full every night, weeknights and weekends even better, so it's going really good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about touring?
About touring in general?
Yeah.
Setting up the gear, the ritual of setting up the gear, the anticipation of the show itself, just the build-up towards the show. Obviously, the show itself is the greatest moment for me, but the entire thing, personally, what I like about touring too is everything you do, every second, it just ties in to the show.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're touring, every second, every minute, it's all about the show that's coming up,
Mm-hmm.
that happened, that went by.
Yeah.
As we're speaking right now, I'm already thinking about the next one. I'm really excited about it. So I would say the best part of touring is just knowing that you're in that bubble,
Yeah.
the whole time, active.
So what are your biggest influences in writing music? It can be like anything, books, movies, other musicians.
Sure. Mostly atmosphere itself now, and
Mm-hmm.
in the early stages, when you're, I'll speak for myself, not for everybody, but when you're younger, when I was younger, you know, you're drawing more directly from maybe some bands, some artists, and as your career goes by, as you get older, you're more inclined towards atmosphere. Once you to put that into perspective, in the early stages of the career, you're looking for the identity of the band, and you're going to take inspiration from other bands, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
But as you evolve halfway, 3/4 through the career or something, maybe like 15 years later, you have your identity now.
Mm-hmm.
Now I feel like I would even call it a luxury of only relying on the atmosphere and how I feel and
Mm-hmm.
what's around me, what's going on in life, everything. Not everything is, you know, the devil and the stars and the moon. It's feelings, it's emotion. So it's like any other art form at the end of the day. So really, that's what I draw most inspiration from. I hardly even listen to music in general.
Mm-hmm.
What I do draw direct inspiration from when I feel like I'm stuck in a rut a little bit is I go back, I listen to, you know, things 1300s, 1400s, medieval European music, a lot of other stuff, rare, exotic folk music from around the world, and so I can get something different, a different emotion than just from, you know, some other metal bands or just the standard classical music I listen to every now and then. Mostly Renaissance period into the Baroque period. I use that a little bit too, kind of in a scholaristic way for writing. I notice how dynamic the writers were, especially in the Baroque period, and all periods always had big dynamics, but Baroque was, you know, a little flamboyant. And I like to take that flamboyancy and kind of obscure it and darken it, and it reminds me that it's okay to be highly expressive in black metal,
Mm-hmm.
not just, you know, linear and you know, and one-dimensional.
So did any particular things influence you to start this band?
The love and passion for the guitar itself.
Mm-hmm.
That is it. It's just the instrument. You know, it's a domino effect. You, as a young kid, it's like anything. In the case of music, you hear an instrument, you like it, you want to learn it. After learn it, you know, it only goes so far in your room playing. So you want to get another musician, you want to start a band, and either it clicks or it doesn't. And for me, it's just, you know, now you have a band. Excuse me. Now you want to write songs, and then you want to write an album, and it just keeps going from there.
So was there anything specific you like about the demon Dagon that you took your name from?
It was a little bit of a superficial reason, but I studied the history. I remember clearly in 1994 when I was looking for the name, and I had an encyclopedia of the occult, really good one actually, that my dad gave me, and in like 92 he gave it to me, and in 94 I was going through it, and I saw the word Dagon. It's not the Lovecraft one that people think. It's the ancient Philistine god, and the fish god, and I've always loved the water, the sea, and that's it. It sounded good. It was a one short name, and it just sounded good, and I like the meaning behind it. It has history behind it too. It's not just a fictitious. It's a full, it's a mythological name, but it was part of history on Earth, so I like that.
So you used to have bass in your music before you switched to black metal, I believe. What made you decide to take it out, if anything, like in particular?
Well, when Inquisition was a thrash metal band, those were the limits I found. There was death metal, there was grindcore, there were other things that were much more extreme or noisy or rough, nasty, but it wasn't music that was guitar driven in the way I liked it. I grew up as a Young Brothers fan of AC/DC. I loved the big, huge, wild power chords, and I didn't hear that in death metal, and all the single noted, palm muted riffs and all that were great. They were dark, they were wicked, they were evil. But the atmosphere of death metal at the time, when I was still doing thrash metal in '93, it was mostly about death and gore and just go all over the fretboard, single notes mostly, and I wasn't inspired by that. And even though it was more extreme, thrash metal still had the heavy metal roots attached to the guitar more. And finally, when black metal came around and I started hearing all the classic, 90s black metal, it had guitar-wise, it had what thrash metal had, but it had the darkness and everything and more that death metal had, but much further and deeper, and all the fancy stuff we like about black metal. So it had intellect, it had huge amounts of expression in every sense. It was okay in black metal, I discovered, for music to sound beautiful and nasty at the same time. And it was music that was really about composition and actual music. I'm not saying death metal and the other things are not music. Of course they're music, of course. But being from a young childhood just enamored with Baroque music and Renaissance music, I saw a really close tie, a parallel between black metal at the time, Baroque music, and then also heavy metal guitar type work, just played super fast and with blasting beats like in death metal. It was just it had the best of 3 or 4 worlds all in one. So that's why it was time. I didn't plan it that way. It was just something that like I say in one of our old songs, "Touched by the Magic Hoof." That's what I felt. That's one of my when I discovered black metal as we know it today. I'm 45 now. Obviously, I heard Venom and Battery all that in the 80s, but as we know it today, thanks to the Scandinavians, the Greeks, and South America, and other things that were the early black metal scene of the United States. It was a world that it conquered my spirit.
Do you have a favorite release that you've done with Inquisition?
It's I really want. I almost beg for people to believe this, but every album is equal to me. If my house is on fire and I have to grab an album, run out with it, I mean, it's hard. But one of the more obscure albums of Inquisition always surfaces somewhere up there. As a favorite, it's like asking someone who's your favorite kid. It's the same thing. Nefarious Dismal Orations is really special to me because it has so many things from the previous albums on it, and it sort of ignited all of the things that came after it. It's a bridge. Ominous Doctrines, that one that came after it, is kind of like a Nefarious Dismal Orations solidified and matured and narrowed down. But Nefarious is up there for me. Of course, Invoking and the first one, I mean, all of them. But Nefarious is somewhat special to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the album you recently released in 2016?
I am extremely happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to kind of bring the boldness, the bulk, meaning in your face, brutal inquisition of the invoking and the magnificent glorification of Lucifer period, albums 2002 and 2004. The weight, the heaviness of it, with in the darkness of those albums, but multiplied by 10, with the agility and I say this in a humble way, but the skill and the evolution that we have musically now today from, for example, obscure verses for the multiverse. So,
are you working on another album?
Not really. I've started. I have about maybe. I guess the short answer is yes. I have started to write guitar segments.
Mm-hmm.
As we say between us, riffs. I have probably about over an hour of riffs. So after all this touring, I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to them, and I'm in that proto stage of writing where I spend maybe about 10 months to a year shuffling through riffs, creating riffs, dumping a lot, keeping 100 steps forward, 80 steps back.
Yeah.
So I'm in that phase. But actually sitting down and saying, today I will begin to write a song. That's going to start, I'm thinking out loud here, but probably once this tour and the upcoming tour in South America that ties into this one, when we get back home in October, I'm going to spend December, January, early part of next year really, really trying to get 2-3 songs out and and let it snowball and roll, domino effect throughout 2018. So by the end of 2018, I have an album.
Okay.
Yeah. Ready to record.
Yeah. So I know you said you don't really listen to a lot of music, but are there any bands in particular you've been listening to lately that you think deserve more attention?
There's a lot of new bands. Not necessarily that I'm like a huge fan, but there's bands that have caught attention. There's some really good American bands. I would recommend Suffering Hour. A group of young guys. They're extremely young, early in their career, and they debuted it with an excellent album.
Mm-hmm.
So check them out. They're basically out of Minnesota. That's a great one. One that I would probably highlight the most right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have for you, unless there's anything else you want to say to your fans.
No, other than I'm really impressed with, I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing in the United States right now. We've come a long ways since about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This band really broke out in the European scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think it happened because that's how it had to happen. They were the ones who were interested the most in us at first. We were getting all the interest from promoters were primarily from Europe, and maybe 5% of them in the United States 10, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And
now what I'm seeing is the demand for the band here. When I say demand, I don't just mean in a sense of promoters wanting a show, but just the intense dedication of Inquisition fans now in the United States. I feel like we finally are, we belong to the scene. We're part of it, and I thank everybody in the U.S. scene for it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing the interview.
Thank you.